Welcome to Diced Onion, a Warrior podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Angelo Fiores. That's Mike Haggerty. Welcome back. We've returned from our holiday break, and we're now in gear to take you through a review of the awesome show, Warrior. Mike, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my friend. And how was your holiday, by the way?
It was good. I had a nice time not worrying about doing podcasts or working all that hard and just enjoying the holiday season. And I hope yours was kind of the same.
Yeah, it was kind of the same.
Awesome.
It was a good holiday.
We got some Warrior news during our break, Mike, not that long ago, maybe about a week ago or so. Looks like we already knew that Max had not ordered a fourth season, but now it appears that the show will be moving to Netflix starting in February. So only in a few short weeks from now, which I think is actually great news to help spread the visibility of this show.
Yeah, it could be a blessing in disguise. Netflix is arguably a bigger platform, so maybe that'll help. I mean, Netflix is probably the most well-known streaming site in the country, so I think that could be beneficial.
Yeah, this could maybe breathe life back into the series, because I'm hoping that the reason Netflix brought the show over, first of all, is because they saw value in it, right? That it can draw some eyeballs. They paid money, obviously, to bring it over. So fingers crossed that they put a little bit of their marketing machine behind the rollout of the show, get it in front of as many people as possible as a selection of things you might like or based on what you've watched or whatever, and maybe help grow this base, this fan base, and bring it to the point where it gets enough viewing or viewership that Netflix orders a fourth season.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think this could, like I said, be a blessing in disguise. I think this could work out, and hopefully it does. I'd really hate to see it end where it did. I want to get a conclusion to the latest season, so I want to see it continue.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think that this is a good thing, because if the show was just gonna linger and flounder sitting on the Max platform without anything else happening with it, because Max wasn't exactly promoting it, I'd rather it be on Netflix in front of a bunch of new people, because it's already been ignored by whoever has had a chance to catch it.
Yeah, and that's kind of almost the point of our whole podcast, because this is like an unknown gem. The word of mouth on this is not as big as it should be, really. It should.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think that maybe if this was like 20 years ago, pre-streaming world, like in the era when cable shows were really big, like The Sopranos and all that, this might have been a bigger show. But
yeah, the landscape now is so deep with content. There's so many different shows to choose from that it's very easy to gloss over a program just based on like the screen that you see of the title screen or the name of it, and you're like, you just keep going, you just keep scrolling through, and then like, oh, this looks interesting, and then you watch something. But fingers crossed now that Warrior will get a new push from their new home, Netflix. Go do it, Netflix.
Hopefully, yes, please.
All right, let's roll, Mike. Season 2, episode 4. Excellent title. If you don't see blood, you didn't come to play. Original air date, October 23rd, 2020. Opening scene, it is nighttime. It is Officer Lee, a nice close-up shot of him. It's pretty quiet out there. You've got crickets in the background. A single dog is in the background, and you're not really sure what's happening here until the shot widens, and we realize, Mike, that it is Bill's house in the aftermath of the crazy Fung Hai home invasion that ended episode 3.
Yeah, Lee is guarding Bill's home. It's just after the fight. There's a police caravan there. Bill's getting his family ready to go to safety, get them out of there.
Yeah,
and we're now seeing the aftermath, which in some ways will be, at least emotionally, as bad as the actual physicality of what just transpired.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is the evacuation of Bill's family. Their own home is no longer safe for them, obviously, because of Bill's actions. And this is where Lucy, his wife, questions exactly why were they here in our home. Bill still gives one of his vagary answers. And this is when she stops taking it and she lays it on him. And she says, this is because of you, and you made me a murderer. And she's not wrong.
No. And I have to really question Bill's judgment in this, and leading up to this, when he, obviously when he told Zing off in the previous episode, he had to know that there would be some repercussions for this. I mean, granted, he's a cop. Maybe he was the hubris of being a cop and thinking he was untouchable. Maybe,
Yeah.
but he had to suspect that there would be something. And now it's all come to a head, and his wife is finally fed up. All his actions, all the gifts that he's been buying her, all the extra money, the steak, the
Right.
pearls, all
Right.
that. It in the end, it didn't matter. And now it's all come to a head, and his wife is letting him know that she doesn't believe him. She never
Right.
believed him really, but she was just kind of going along with the ride because everything was kind of nice and calm. And well, now it's come to a halt.
She said to him in a previous episode, don't remember if it was the last one or the one before this, that one thing she always knew is that she could count on him to keep them safe. And now she can't count on that anymore. And it's an easy decision.
Good point.
While a difficult one, it's an easy decision for them, for her to leave with the children. And as they leave, Bill says to her, "I'll send for you." And she's like, "Don't."
Yeah.
Right. So right now she's done. She is done with Bill, and she is out of there. So now Lucy's off after telling Bill what she thinks of him, and he's got to now deal with his partner Lee, who now takes up the baton from Lucy and says, "I thought you quit gambling." He could have very well been Lucy saying this to him. And Bill's response again is, "I did." But why the Fung Hai here?
Yeah.
He wants to know.
Yeah. And then Bill kind of lays it out for him. And Lee, being the detective he is, he's listening, he's taking it all in. And we see that Lee is kind of realizing what happened, what's actually been transpiring. Because he's a good detective, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. He's already, as much as Lucy knew she was being lied to and she was letting things go aside because there was really no harm, no foul, Lee was doing the same thing. But he's been suspecting something's up with Bill, and he's asked him a couple of times, and things have worked where Bill's never had to fess up. But with 3 dead Fung Hai in his living room, it's time to fess up. And Bill confesses to Lee at this point what he's been doing for the last couple months.
And then Lee puts it all together.
Yeah. You can see Lee piecing more puzzles as Bill's explaining his collections activities for the Fung Hai. And that's when Lee realizes the beating that he took a few episodes back, the one that caused his chemical dependency, falls at the hands of his friend and partner.
Ultimately, yes. Bill's actions had repercussions. He's lost his home, he's lost his family, and now he's lost his friend because everyone feels betrayed. And Lee correctly feels betrayed by Bill.
Yeah. And he gives Lee gives Bill a slug in the face. They kind of scrap a little bit. And that's where the scene ends, where Lee's like, "Just get away from me." So Lucy says, "Get away from me." Lee says, "Get away from me." Bill's a one-man band right now. And that's where the scene ends, with Bill wondering now exactly where does he go from here.
He's going to have to regroup, rebuild, and mend some fences, hopefully.
Yeah, and figure out his Fung Hai problem.
Yeah.
All right, we're off to the Banshee now. Place is raucous. It's got a lot of action. It's jam-packed. The music is playing. People are crowded. They're deep at the bar. And here's Sophie with a date. So she's not just there looking for Leary, at least it doesn't seem like it. She's with this guy. He's kind of a proper man, for a lack of a better term. And he's clearly uncomfortable in this environment, Mike.
Yeah, you know that old term, the rebound boyfriend? He's not really a rebound boyfriend because she's not rebounding from anyone, but either way, he's dead in the water from the get-go.
Yeah. If you remember a couple episodes back, her sister Penny was trying to hook her up with somebody. Remember, she said, Mr. Anderson's son, Philip. I don't remember the name exactly, but she mentioned a name, and Sophie was not interested at all.
Spencer.
Thank you very much. I forgot the guy's name already. But they're at the bar now, and they're standing there, and he's kind of trying to order a drink, but doesn't know how to do it because he's not in these kinds of places. And so
fish out of water.
Yeah, he's a fish out of water, and that's where Sophie just kind of does the 2 beers, like a regular. Right.
Yeah.
And the guy recognizes this about her and says, you're kind of a
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
sort of girl, aren't you? Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's clear that she's toying with him. She just wants to make him uncomfortable.
But it's clear to us only, right? Not necessarily to him. And I really didn't get what her game was in bringing the guy here, other than to possibly humiliate him or something. I'm not really sure, or
And
make him
maybe
uncomfortable.
or maybe just dissuade him of any interest he might have in her, and maybe just kind of nip this in the bud in her own way.
I guess so, but you could always just say no, I don't want to see him, and that would kind of ended it too. But anyway, they chug their beers, or at least she does. He has trouble keeping up with her as far as drinking the beer. This is the part where I believe he starts sort of bragging on his athleticism. Right, he's an athlete in college playing rugby, and that interests her because she says, "Hey, isn't that kind of a rough game?"
Yeah, and this is the one area that she sort of piqued her interest in him a little bit. It's made him a little more interesting to her, but
Well, his answer, and I was surprised that this is the character it came from. His answer was the title of the episode. Well, if you don't see blood, you didn't come to play. So after he does a little bragging about his athleticism, and he mentions about if you didn't see blood or you don't bleed, you didn't come to play. That's when she says, "You still like the sight of blood? Come on outside." And
right.
she takes him outside where she knows what's going on back there, which is where the Irishman brawl happens,
Yeah,
right?
the bare knuckle fights.
The bare knuckle fights. So they're watching these bare knuckle fights, and Spencer is like, "Well, where's the rules? How do they know when it's over? What's going on here?" And that's like when a guy gets like knocked out cold, and she goes, "It's over."
Yeah.
So there's no rules here. Spencer is a guy of rules because of the institutions that he's spawned from, in a sense. And that's when Mr. Leary, beholden to no one, comes through and sees Sophie and her date. And this is where they start chatting. And it's clear instantly that Leary's kind of possessive. Because he starts challenging Spencer's manhood almost instantly by describing what it's like to get out there and fight with no rules.
Yeah, and what I was trying to figure out in this scene is whether Leary was, or Penny, I'm sorry, Leary and Sophie were kind of planned this because, and the reason I asked that, well, let me just say because, all right, imagine if we know Leary by now, right? And maybe he thinks of Sophie as his girl, and he sees his girl showing up with another guy. Now, the Leary that I think I know would have just pummeled this guy into next Tuesday. But they're both kind of playing a kind of cat and mouse game, unless this is still like a casual thing for them at this point. I can't tell. That's what I was trying to figure out here. I'm like, because I would think, okay, we all know Leary, right? So if Leary is possessive of a girl, truly possessive of a girl, and he sees her with another man, he'd probably just break the guy's jaw, and that would probably be the best of it.
She could have taken Spencer to any bar in San Francisco, Mike.
Yeah.
She went to the place owned by the guy that she's having sex with.
Right.
So I'll be blunt here. I don't like her. I don't like her one bit. She's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, I consider her a poser. Well, you remember we used to call people poser, the trying to pretend something they're not. Yeah, wannabe.
Yeah, she doesn't seem to really bring anything to the table other than being like a mischievous little spoiled woman.
Right.
And that's exactly what she is. So now she's brought this guy who, other than making the mistake of being interested in her because she's good looking, really doesn't deserve the treatment he's getting right now and being put in this uncomfortable position. Meanwhile, while Leary is dressing him down, talking about, you ever felt the sweet pain of slamming your knuckles into the side of a man's jaw, right? So if you notice in that scene, as the two men are looking at each other, Sophie doesn't take her eyes off of Leary. She is looking square at him, and you can tell that this is also turning her on. So maybe in some weird way, she knew she and Leary could have sex at any time she wants at this point, but maybe she went and did this so she can get herself worked up a little bit more and to get him worked up, because at this point, Spencer doesn't want to stay anymore, and he decides that it's time to go.
Right. He wants to take her home as a true gentleman. He wants to drop her off, but she says, no, I'm good. She wants to stay.
I'll stay. And he's like, all right, whatever at this point. And I don't blame him either, right? He wants to do the right thing and see her back home, but she decides she's staying. And that's when it clicks for him too. He's like, this is BS. And I'm out of there. Next thing you know, Leary and her are
getting
in the back
biblical
room or in the upstairs or wherever they are, and they are doing it. And it's almost passionate, right? It's almost passionate, almost like between two people that care about each other. But I think that Sophie's mission right there was accomplished. And I think as we hash our way through that scene, Mike, I almost feel like she did it to get herself more turned on.
So like a fetish thing. Okay.
I don't know about a fetish, but she knows what she knows what gets her gears going or something, right? How to push her own buttons. And so she did something to push everybody's buttons.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Right. I almost used that phrase just now. All right. Now we are cut away. It's Chinatown. Overhead shot, big laundry. Looks a lot of laundry hanging, and you can hear man talking about how we're going to expand the operation. We're in a great location. We're going to get white people's business. We're going to get Chinese people's business. And as the scene, the camera cuts in, we see it's Mai Ling kind of walking around with Li Yang and this laundry owner who is describing his needs for expansion, and he needs some money. Asks for $300.
And Mai Ling is playing the role of Godfather here, right? Right? Like you can picture, Vito Corleone walking through Little Italy, sampling the fruits and the stands, and
it's the exact scene. Yeah,
absolutely. The same vibe. And she's flexing her muscles. She's listening to his proposal, but she's not really interested in what he wants. She's interested in what it can do for her. And
right.
She makes him a counteroffer, which on the surface sounds really good, but this guy's a little hesitant. She offered him $1,000.
A lot of strings. She didn't offer. Yeah. She insisted that I'm giving you $1,000.
Right.
The guy's like, I don't need that much.
Yeah.
And she says, no. I'm giving you $1,000. And it's clear what is now happening here. She's strong-arming her way in, and she starts talking about your $1,000 will get you a partner, and now you have protection. And she's instantly not dipping her toes, diving into the deep end of racketeering. Right.
And you know what I'm thinking here too in this scene, because I just mentioned The Godfather, but what about Goodfellas? The scene where the guy was asking Big Paulie if he'd help him protect him against Tommy. And
what do I know about the restaurant business?
Partner, right. And it was all a setup. And then Paulie becomes his business partner, and we get the fuck you pay me segment
and eventually. And the joint at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the same recipe, right?
Yeah.
This is what these guys do. And in this case, this woman does, Mai Ling. She's as much of a mobster as any guy we've seen portrayed in any movie. She might be still new at it, at least from the outside to everyone else, but she knows exactly how to play the game. So she says to the guy on her way out, to the laundry owner, who still kind of doesn't really want this deal, but realizes he doesn't have a choice but to take it. And she says, you came to me for a loan and you come out of it with a partner. I'd say it's a pretty good day for you, she says. Almost like, be grateful or else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They step outside of the laundry tent or business, whatever you want to call it. And Li Yang is with her, of course. And he questions what the point of all this is, because it clearly makes him look bad. He says to her, the guy came to me asking for a loan, and I told him we could probably help him. And now we're in here owning the place. What is this all about? And they debate about the benefits of this business acquisition.
Li Yang in his own way is kind of becoming the moral center of his world. I mean, he's obviously a violent man. He doesn't hesitate to use violence when necessary, but he kind of lives by a code, and this is violating his code. A lot of things that Mai Ling are doing are making him uncomfortable. And you may not think of Li Yang as maybe a very moral man, but again, he's maybe living by an old school warrior code. Like, this is the way we do things, and we don't harm innocent people, that kind of thing. And Mai Ling isn't playing by those rules. And this is where the main source of tension is between the two of them. And this comes up a lot.
Yeah, and let's continue with the theme of all these betrayals coming to light. This, although not a gigantic thing for Li Yang, this is a minor betrayal, though, because she betrayed his word to the laundry guy. And now, what does that mean about Li Yang's word on the street to everybody else? Because if you don't think the laundry guy is going to be like, yo, I went to Li Yang and asked him for a loan, and next thing you know, they strong arm their way right into my business. And when you're that laundry owner, there ain't no difference between Li Yang and Mai Ling anymore. Right.
No,
And
no.
so word on the street will get out that, maybe Li Yang's word's not as good as it used to be. And that hurts Li Yang on the inside because, like you said, he's sort of the at least Chinatown moral center, right? Or at least Longzi moral center. And he does live by the code. But she's adamant. She's like, we are going to be getting into legitimate businesses because if the Tongs go away, we can't be fully invested in only Tong business, right? She gets into the carriage, the horse-drawn carriage, and closes the door. And he stays on the outside, kind of with his head bowed down. And he's slightly defeated. And I think already thinking about what the hell am I doing here?
And maybe that was a bit of a metaphor. She's on the inside, he's on the outside. Maybe
right.
And I think that might have been a visual metaphor.
Great point. I had not thought of that one, and I really like it. I believe you're absolutely correct. All right, scene cuts away. We're at the police department, and the cops are getting ready for a raid on the Fung Hai to avenge Bill. Word is out about what happened at Bill's house, and no cop is going to take that lying down, and they are mobilizing. But then Chow shows up.
Yeah, Chow's trying to stop them. He's sees a way that this could be Chow always thinking about the angles, and there's an option here that could be mutually beneficial for all of them because they all want the same thing. They all want Zing gone.
Yeah, and this is where Chow tips off Bill a little bit, and he's like, "Don't do this. They're waiting for you." Right? Zing is expecting this attack, and you'll be walking into an ambush. Right? He says maybe there's a better way. Maybe Zing's the swordsman you're looking for. And that's when Bill becomes interested. Oh, yeah? What's going on?
Yeah, and this would pretty much tie everything in a neat little bow, solve all their problems. They get rid of the swordsman.
Yeah, right? Chow, as we know from the last episode, doesn't want anything to do with Zing. He hates when Zing comes into his store. He hates that he's now in business with Zing. Remember, Zing gave him like a half payment for some weapons in the last episode. And he also said to Chow, when people get in business with me, they eventually only work with me. So Chow, who's a man of everybody, doesn't want any part of ending up being beholden to this lunatic Zing. And he's got a way out somehow. And again, as Bill's interested, he says, this could be good for you, huh, Chow? And Chow says, this could be good for everybody.
Yeah, and we see that, kind of Chow's business model is not being beholden to anyone, right? He doesn't want any strings on him. He kind of operates fluidly between the Tongs and the police and the legitimate world, right? And with Zing, he's no one's puppet. I mean, no matter what. I mean, in his own way, Chow is a warrior. He's maybe more of a mental warrior,
right?
But he's his own kind of.
Yeah, he's really strong, but in a different way.
Right.
And he's managed to build his own empire as a one-man band, surrounded by a bunch of gangs that have needed mass amounts of men to amass their position and power. So there's definitely a jealousy towards Chow from everyone else who is beholden to somebody at the top. So Chow's got a plan, and he tells Bill to wait 2 days. Don't raid today. Wait 2 days, and I will give you your swordsman on a platter, right? But, of course, there's a price. And Chow's end is what? He wants his weapons back. Remember the stuff that they impounded from him, I guess you can call, also an episode or two back, is basically his inventory. Bill says, you deliver and we'll talk. So they kind of tenuous agreement here between Chow and Bill. I guess Bill's got to go sell it to his boss now or something, right?
I would imagine that Bill does have to run this up the flagpole, but Bill's definitely interested in if this can solve all problems and wrap it up in a neat little bow.
Yeah, because as we said a couple scenes back, Bill really has to solve his Fung Hai and his Zing concerns before he can get back to having his family together, his job back in order, and his work partner also back in line on his side. And so this is the first step, perhaps. But that's where the scene ends. We now return and it's Sophie. It's clearly the next morning, right? They're in an empty, she's in the banshee. It's empty at this point. She puts on a robe and she kind of walks her way through the place. And she looks out the window and sees Leary out there, manning I guess the morning bread line, I guess.
Yeah, and this is Leary being the PR guy. He's being the man
Yeah.
about town, right? He's spreading goodwill, much as we know, like Al Capone did in the 30s. He opened up soup kitchens and free places for the unemployment and things
Right.
like that. This is Leary's own version of PR, right? And many a gangster has done that historically, kind of build goodwill with the local community. Or maybe he really does care. Maybe it's a mixture of both in Leary's case.
Yeah, it's almost like the Sopranos, where they did the Christmas thing every year, where the line of neighborhood kids to come get toys from Santa at the back of Satrial's. Very, very similar. Leary's playing a bigger game here, though, because he's a man of these people and he's trying to feed them a little bit at least until he can get them jobs. Or that's the facade, so to speak, because you're never going to get everybody a job, but you still need everybody behind you. Right. So we digressed a little bit there, but Sophie's checking him out from through the window, and I don't know what she's thinking. Like, wow, he's really a good. My thought was, wow, he's really, outside of the gruff exterior, he's really a good-hearted person, and he's doing something to make a difference. That's how I feel that where she's at that point. This is when he comes back in with some food for her. He's like, hey, I brought you some breakfast. You hungry? And she's like, yeah, you kept me up all night. I wanted to throw up when she said that, by the way. She asks him, this is where she asks him a question, and she says, hey, have you not bombed my sister's factory because of me? And his answer is pretty cool. I don't have it like exact, but in essence, he says to her, listen, there's no place for feelings in the business that I'm in. If I was letting feelings dictating how I proceeded, I wouldn't be standing here.
I'd be in a grave in Ireland.
I'd be in a grave in Ireland. Is that what he said?
Something like that. Yeah, because if I let feelings get in the way, I'd be in the ground in Ireland right now.
Right. So, and then the other thing he does say is also another reason why we haven't hit your sister's place is because she's got the Chinese garden. So it's a combination of stuff. And that is pretty much where that scene ends, right?
Yeah. Sophie working her own angle, but she's doing it out of a resentment towards her sister.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure yet. Like, she's up to something. I don't know if that's coming out clearly just yet. I think later on in the episode, we're going to see her, what drives her finally. But her wheels are already turning, no doubt about it. Scene ending. We now move on. We're at Hopway headquarters. We haven't seen them yet this episode, so this is a nice change of locale. And it's the recruits. Remember, an episode or two ago, Father June brought in a bunch of new recruits. There they are at the table having breakfast, and Hong, the new guy who we saw is pretty crazy and can fight, is eating, and he's taking some abuse. He's getting bullied in a sense for being the gay guy at the table. And he has to hear, some slurs and stuff, and it ain't cool.
No. And young June catches wind of this. He's at the adult table.
Right.
And he's walking over and he's kind of laughing. I mean, I didn't buy it initially. I was like, oh, young June. I never thought that young June really was laughing at the jokes,
right.
Knowing young June like we do, like, okay, he's going to protect Hong. Because Hong is clearly growing on young June.
We can work with crazy, he said.
Yes.
So he sees Hong as an asset.
Yeah. And he's going to defend his asset. And that's what he does. And he proceeds to, let's say, knock some sense into the guy. He beats the hell out of the guy that is making fun of Hong.
Slams his head into the table like three times, hard.
Yeah.
3 times, real hard. And I like how the other recruits get up as if they're going to do something or not sure what they're going to do. And Assam gives him the no with the finger.
Yeah.
A la Bruce Lee in many cases. I thought that was a throwback to Bruce Lee. And while this is all going on, Hong's just looking and eating, because he knows he doesn't have to get up and do anything. And that's when Father June comes in. And he goes, "What the fuck is going on here?" And I love Young Jun's answer: breakfast. I like the hop way breakfast scene much better than the Leary Sophie breakfast scene, I gotta say.
Yeah, we're not a fan of Sophie.
Nah, I don't like her. I didn't like her from the get go, and she's making herself more and more unlikable. And I don't know why we're talking about her now, because we got to move on. We got to move on because this next scene does involve her brother-in-law, the mayor, who is chatting with the chief of police, and the chief is filling him in on what's gone on. And that's when Bill walks into this meeting. And the mayor expresses his concern, his thoughts and prayers. They actually use the phrase thoughts and prayers in here. I thought that was kind of thrown in there in a sense as a dig to the thoughts and prayers people. But this is when Bill asks them to delay the attack. So he immediately takes Chow's plan to the top. There's no more top than the mayor in this case. And Buckley says, no, we cannot wait. Buckley's in on this meeting too, right? So you got mayor, the chief of police, Buckley, and now the Chinatown squad leader, Bill. And so there's this debate about whether or not they wait a couple of days or strike now so as not to seem weak.
Well, we know that Buckley is kind of a chaos agent. He's an agent of chaos. He wants bedlam. He wants havoc because that serves his purposes.
Right.
I think the mayor has probably come from the point of view the same as Flanagan, and where Bill was a couple of scenes ago, where you have to show strength immediately. You can't let this stand. And
Like
now we
four people in a room, all with four different agendas.
Yeah.
Buckley wants, you started it off with Buckley, right? Buckley wants chaos. That's one. Mayor wants to get reelected. That's two. Flanagan's the chief of police. He wants to show that he's doing his job. Otherwise, he's out. And Bill's trying to cover his ass for like 9 different things. So while they're all operating and having this conversation seemingly about the same thing, they're all talking about different stuff right now. And that's
a really good point.
That's so crazy that they can end up coming to some sort of agreement at this stage where the mayor agrees with Bill and says, okay, then I trust you're the man here to tell us when we should proceed. Do so. And Bill leaves seemingly having pulled this off for now.
That was a really good point. That's actually, I didn't even pick up on that. So kudos to you on that one. Yeah, because they're 4 different men with 4 different agendas, but Bill was able to make his case. And
it made just enough sense. Just enough sense.
It made just enough sense
to stiff arm the raid. Yeah. However, now that everyone's out of the room, Mike, it's just Buckley and the mayor in this office. Buckley now, who in these one-on-one conversations seems to be much stronger than the mayor, steps in and he demands that the mayor stand up and talk to his constituents about their safety, about this Chinese situation. You can't have Chinese people raiding and killing white people's houses. Buckley goes down the list. He says Crestwood is not going to be happy with you. He like rattles off, a whole bunch of stuff. He says to the mayor, what about the fact that your wife has, the mayor doesn't, the senator doesn't like that your wife has the tongs guarding her factory. And the mayor says, well, how would he know that?
Good point. That's a really good point.
And Buckley has to fess up that he ratted him out.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, right? Buckley says, I felt the need to inform him before he found out on his own.
Well, as usual, Buckley is playing his own game. And Buckley, he reminds me a lot of Chow, because they're both kind of moving without any strings, or at least trying to not have any strings attached. So and Buckley and Chow might be the 2 smart. Well, Buckley, Chow, and Atoy might be the 3 smartest characters in the show, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But he reminds the mayor also, Mike, that there's an election coming that you're trying to win here. So, it's important for you to put on the face you need to put on. And he's made it clear you got to satisfy like 3 groups of people. You got to satisfy the constituents. You got to satisfy the senator. You got to satisfy the business owners in town, because this Chinese labor thing's at the heart of all of this. And that's where the scene ends. And again, the mayor never really seems to ever be in control during any of this stuff. He hasn't from day one, and he's still, you know, still not in control of his situation.
He
Back
may
in
think he
Chinatown,
is, but he's not.
no, he thinks he is. I don't even know if he thinks. Excuse me. I don't know, Mike, if he even thinks he's in control, to tell you the truth, because he really comes off as befuddled in a lot of, even when he's talking to Bill in this scene. Well, you're our man. I trust your word. Even then, he doesn't sound like anyone who's convinced of what he's doing. He's almost like almost waiting for someone to say yes, yes, good, or no, no, to decide what to say next. This guy, he's truly a puppet's puppet.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's a shallow, hollow man. He's a husk of a man.
Yes, willing to be dragged in any direction to meet. I don't even know what his goals are. If it's money, if it's power, because he doesn't seem to mix well in any of those realms.
No,
Strange.
no, he doesn't. No.
Strange. All right, we're off to Chinatown again, and there's a crowd in the streets. There's kind of like a street performer swinging a stick around, doing some cool gymnastics, and almost like an exhibition. Everybody's clapping. When it's all over with, people are kind of throwing money into a hat for the guy. So it's like a little street performance, right? And who come face to face with each other from either side of the street? Mai Ling and Atoy, right? Atoy, though, turns around to leave.
Big mistake.
Big mistake, because Mai Ling calls to her.
Yeah.
And she says, Atoy. And it's funny because you got Atoy's face on camera, the voice of Mai Ling from off screen. And when she calls to her, you see Atoy's face completely change. It goes from just like a regular face to.
Yeah, and this is another example of Mai Ling flexing her muscle. And Atoy clearly really doesn't want to have anything to do with Mai Ling. She's not a fan.
You know what's interesting to me, Mike, is that when they begin their conversation, it becomes obvious right away. This is the first time they're meeting. I didn't realize.
I didn't either. I just took for granted that they knew each other.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. And when that came out, that threw me off a little bit. And it's funny that because they've never met before, it strikes me as even more peculiar that Mai Ling comes out really, like you said, flexing her muscle, in a sense, demanding respect. She's very aggressive towards Atoy in her tone. Did I do something to offend you? Is there a reason why you didn't mention anything to me? Did you not say hello for a reason? Most people greet me when they see me. Like, she was going off a little bit. And Atoy, like, she's the coolest character on the show in many ways. And she's just like, of course not. My mind was on other things. No disrespect intended. Thank you, Mai Ling. Right? Like, she just weaves her way right out of that situation. No confrontation. Sure, Mai Ling, whatever you say. And Mai Ling's like, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Now, what do you think the source of the tension is? Why do you think it's because of Assam? Why does Atoy not seemingly care for Mai Ling? I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, I think that it's an overall feeling. I think Mai Ling, she has been known throughout Chinatown for a while now, even before she outwardly took power, right? So she's a person whose reputation precedes her. And so I believe that Atoy has her own concept of what Mai Ling is based on what she outwardly knows and can see, what she's been told and understands. Plus, she's got the inside scoop that, this is Assam's sister, right? She's one of the very, very scant few that know this part of the secret. So I don't think she needs to know any more than she already knows because of her friendship with Assam too. That's how I see that.
I was trying to figure out. I didn't think it was entirely about Assam. I thought it probably was, maybe she didn't like the way she did business, and kind of maybe the way Mai Ling has upset the apple cart, so to speak.
It's kind of like that workplace where, like, when the boss walks through, everyone just kind of looks off to the side and does their own thing. Don't talk to me. I'm just working. It's the same exact thing that she was doing. She's like, oh boy, you see Vito Corleone coming down the street, you turn and you look the other way, and maybe you say, thank you, Godfather. But here was what my thought was. Who the F is Mai Ling to be walking around to be said, hello, Godfather. Good morning, Godfather. Thank you, Godfather. It's like when you got to go around telling people that you're supposed to be respected, then you're not really respected.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, I mean, respect is earned, and it doesn't have to be. If you have to ask for it, you don't have it.
Yeah, my Ling's building this sort of very tenuous empire in a sense to me. She's flexing a lot of muscle and coming off very strong, but but the subservient those that are subservient to her aren't necessarily all that willing, I don't think.
No,
Yeah.
no. There's hesitancy.
We're back to the mayor now, Mikey, and he is addressing a group of people. Looks like reporters, looks like a couple of upper brass of the police department, and he's in a sense going off about the Chinese criminals and the safety of their citizens and the safety of the police, and then of course it comes down to the big tie-in, which is labor enforcement, Chinese labor, right? And this is a mayor whose wife employs Chinese labor and Chinese guards. So,
yep.
And of course, the scene closes with Mr. Buckley viewing this from kind of afar, I suppose, taking stock of the mayor's performance. And I guess it suits Buckley's needs, the statements that the office of the mayor is making, right?
Yeah, again, Bill, much to his credit, was able to sell it, and he got all four men to agree, even though they had four different agendas. So, like you said,
yeah, so, and without all four of them necessarily agreeing, which is pretty crazy when you really peel that scene away. All right, we move on now. We're not back to first time this episode. Penny's factory in the office. She's counting her money, or she's paying Assam the money, and he counts it, which is very interesting because when the girl Vega at the Fight Club pays him, he never counts it.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of a show, maybe, of disrespect. I was wondering,
absolutely. She says, "You don't trust me," and he's like, "Look, I got a lot of guys to pay. I just wanted to make sure that this is right." So again, just the fact that he went and counted that money, you're right. It's almost like not a subconscious dig, but a silent dig at Penny in some ways. And I think what it does, Assam's pretty smart, as we know, right? He's probably the smartest guy on the show, as well as the dumbest guy on the show. But by counting it, Mike, I feel like it's conveying like the body language that this is strictly business. What we have going here is a business arrangement, right? But then, she starts to chit chat with him. She moves it from that business and the counting of the money to, so how are you? Seemingly interested in what he has to say. Yeah. But to me, felt very phony.
Yeah, and I think she says something to him along the lines of, "You haven't changed at all," and he said, "You have."
Yes. Exactly.
Really pointing out to her that she's the reason why things are the way they are. Pointing out that she's the reason why it's strictly business now.
Correct. Although they seem to be almost sharing a tender moment, slightly, and then they get walked in on very quickly. Someone comes into the office, employee, and I like how Penny introduces him as this gentleman is from the Chinese Businessmen's Association, and he is helping us with our, security, and that's when Assam puts on like the accent, right?
Yeah, he does
talking fluent English.
Yeah.
Thank you for pay, madam. Like totally like cartoonish.
Yeah. Almost like yeah. Cartoonish. Yeah. That was a little comic relief there.
I thought it was kind of funny. I chuckled when he did that. I don't know why, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, now so Assam is now leaving. We're outside the factory. Assam is leaving, and just across the street or across the alley, there's Leary and a couple of Irishmen. They see Assam, and Leary steps up to him right away. He sees Assam. He knows Assam, and he says, "You get around, don't you, Chink?"
Yeah, and this had a very old West showdown feel to me. I mean, the street was empty. There were guys on either side of each other, facing each other. And if this was like an old Western, they might have pulled out guns and started shooting at each other.
It's funny. You're right. You're right
This,
about that.
yeah, this had a very old West feel to me about it. And I thought Assam made a really interesting point. There was a really good dialogue between them, basically speaking about to the problem of labor relations and immigrant labor. And I think it could have been applicable today because Leary is obviously there's resentment towards the Chinese for being cheap labor.
You don't
And
belong
Assam,
here, he says. You
yeah.
don't belong here.
And Assam points out, well, you're not American either. And he also says something I thought was very interesting. He says, instead of being mad at me, why don't you be mad at the people that won't fucking hire you?
Yeah. I'll backtrack it for a second because it was such a great conversation, right? Between them. Leary starts in with the you don't belong here stuff, right? And you come here and you're taking our jobs. And Assam says, do I look like I want your job? He goes, do I look like I want your effing job? He says to him. And then the line that you just referred to, I wrote it down. Why don't you ask your people why they fuck you over by hiring us? And that had to have been some kind of like slap in Leary's face because then Assam punctuates it with maybe you're the one that doesn't belong here. And that's where it's like a tense moment where you said it's almost like a showdown, right? Get out of town. No, you get out of town. And Leary is clear. He wants a piece of Assam. And he says, we have unfinished business here, right? Assam has a great line. He refers back to something that Leary said to him in his opening rant to Assam in the beginning part of this confrontation, where he says, you guys come over here. It doesn't matter. You're nothing but a chink. Doesn't matter, if you're wearing a suit or if you're wearing rags or whatever, fancy suit. And when Leary says, we've got unfinished business, Assam says, well, come find me. I'll be the chink in the fancy fucking suit. And Leary leaves.
I love Assam, always a smart ass.
Always a smart ass, never fails to stand up for himself, never shows an ounce of weakness because I don't think he possesses any physical weakness. So he's confident in himself. His weaknesses are on the inside.
Yeah. Mainly the women around him, mainly his sister.
Right. That's true. Good point. Speaking of women, we're at our toys. It's not business hours. And we see that Nellie Davenport is back. Remember her as the rich widow who saves Chinese prostitutes from the brothels. And that's exactly what's happening here. It looks like there is a girl who wants to leave, and Atoy is willing to give her to Nellie in a sense. And I say give only in a not in a possessive slavery way, right, but in a relinquish her over to her. And Nellie and Atoy have a conversation about exactly what's supposed to happen and what's next here.
Right. And I think probably Atoy in her own way thinks she's probably saving these girls too.
Right.
I think
at least this one.
At least this one. And there's a little bit of a say a tug of war. I don't know what the proper term is between her and Nellie Davenport about they both see themselves in the same light, but they just take different tactics. Like Nellie is completely altruistic. She wants to help these girls. Atoy's helping these girls, but she's also helping them out of profit. Let's be honest. She's making money off of them. So she's exploiting them, but she is saving them from a worse fate. Yeah,
because again, she runs a clean show. She's respected in her business, right? They don't outwardly appear to treat the girls terribly, but being a girl working in a brothel is a hard life, and at some point you need to get out, right? And that's what's happening here. And Atoy even says to Nellie, remember, the girls here can leave anytime they want. They stay because I treat them right. She goes, well, maybe they stay because they don't think there's anywhere else to go. And so there's that tug of war that you were talking about. But ultimately Nellie extends an invite to Atoy to come see kind of her operation in a sense, and what it is that the girls do when they finally escape their current life. And we also see that Nellie speaks pretty good Chinese or Cantonese or whatever dialect.
Mandarin, Cantonese.
Yeah, whatever it is, she speaks it pretty well. And I think that shows an effort to connect with Atoy in a way of building some trust.
It gives her a little credibility.
Right.
A little credit in the Chinese community. Again, they never make clear what dialect they're speaking, but I mean, either way, she knows it.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be clear to me if you told me, hey, here's the 6 different dialects this could be. I'd be like, all right.
I don't even know 6 different American English dialects.
Exactly, right? Good point. All right, we are now at the mayor's residence, and it is the mayor and his wife, and they're talking, and they're discussing his speech. And for the first time to me, even though they're not necessarily being friendly to each other, they're really just having a conversation, right? Um, but she reminds him that in his speech, he's broken some promises to his industrialist backers.
Yeah, and she's coming at him as a businesswoman now. She's not coming at him as his wife, and she's speaking strictly as the owner of Mercer Steel.
Right.
And what you can do for me. And there's two different layers here. There's number one, the mayor wants his wife to be a wife, but she wants to be a businesswoman, and she wants him to deliver on his promises to her. But he's trying to find a way out of it, and the Chinese labor obviously is a part of it.
Yeah, yeah, and
but only a part.
And then she informs him that the businessmen organization are mobilizing a new candidate to run against him now, someone who's a little bit more friendlier to their plight of high labor costs. And this is when he decides to start talking down to her. I mean, he really starts talking down to her about, oh, you're a businesswoman, are you? He goes, well, how about this, Mrs. Businesswoman? I am pulling your contract. So moving from this point forward, Mercer Steel is no longer contributing to the cable car track project. Go run your company now, dear. I mean, really a prick move. And I love that she says to him, you can't do that.
Right. And she also kind of very coyly, very threatens to expose his peccadillos, as it were. And she says, something to the effect, we all have secrets, and in her own way, it would be a shame if your secrets got out. Like, she's using a little extortion herself.
Well, she uses legal extortion first when she says to him, listen, maybe you haven't read the contract, but if you were to pull the deal, it will cost you more to pay me off than it would be to see the contract through. So maybe you better lawyer up, she says to him. And he goes, oh, you have, I guess. And she goes, I have. And then that's when she hints at his Chinese brothel activity, right?
Yeah, she threatened him with a lawyer, then she threatened him with secrets.
And, yeah.
It was a boss move for Penny.
Well, it was a big move because, like you said, right, she's a business person now, and she sees her profit margin, as razor thin as it is, get further diminished by his grandstanding about Chinese labor. And so while he waffles in the wind and lets both sides sort of wonder when the other shoe is going to drop, he's just trying to stay down the middle and win another election. So that's not going to, and I think it's becoming clear to him that he ain't going to make it to that finish line because the pressure is too intense on either side, from outside the home, from within City Hall, and from inside the home from his wife. And now also from his sister-in-law, Sophie, who shows up, right? And Penny informs her that she's aware of what went down at the Banshee the other night. She's like, hey, Spencer's father or mother or whoever talked to me, and you took him at the Banshee? And they get really snippy with each other and very condescending with each other, don't they?
Yeah, but I think ultimately, and you must have enjoyed this, that Penny put her in her place ultimately, kind of said, finally laid the hammer down, said, hey, look, you basically just put her in her place.
Who the F are you, essentially?
Yeah. I mean, who the hell do you think you are? And that was one of my favorite scenes, and I imagine it was one of yours too, because finally seeing that little poser get put in her place.
Yeah.
And she's the first person. I mean, Leary did a little bit at times.
But Leary did it with the mindset of a guy who's trying to get her another time.
Yeah.
A little bit different approach there, right?
Yeah.
Penny fires some serious daggers at her when she says, you do nothing, you contribute nothing, you are nothing. It almost reminded me of Niedermeyer in Animal House going off on Flounder. And then as Sophie storms out, her sister throws one more bomb at her, and she says, yes, go to wherever it is you go to feel superior. And out the door Sophie goes, right?
Maybe she's the only person that really knows Sophie really well.
Clearly she knows her, right?
Yeah.
Clearly she knows him. All right, scene cuts away. We're back to Mai Ling. She's having one of her meetings in her carriage. She loves to have meetings in her horse-drawn carriage. That's where she does her best work, apparently. And she's meeting up with her private eye, who is all beat up. She just bailed him out of jail, it looks like. You remember she hired this guy a couple of episodes ago. She met him at the bar and hired him to do some snooping around on Buckley.
And he's a Pinkerton.
Well, is he a Pinkerton or is he just a drunken private detective?
Well, I thought he was a former Pinkerton.
Former. He's not affiliated now. Yeah.
No, because probably because he's a drunkard.
Yeah, and she's starting to get a little annoyed because he hasn't made good yet. Really, he hasn't given her anything, and Buckley's probably coming with the pressure for chaos. And Mai Ling needs to find a way to keep Buckley off her back so she can keep building her empire, right? And he says he's got something on Buckley, but he's going to have to go on a trip or something to validate what he's heard about.
Right, and kind of leaves Mai Ling and us wondering what that could be.
Yeah, he alludes to a photograph, and if it's what I think it is, he says it's going to help you out a lot. He did say something to her a little earlier in the scene where he says, I got a feeling that you hired a drunken PI for a reason, and she's like, yeah, because maybe no one will miss you. So she's again, it's like this is the Mai Ling muscle flex episode. She's going around to anyone who's been in contact with her now, and she's just like, hey, I'm stronger than you. Do what I say. Hey, I'm stronger than you. Do what I say. And so, and she's done it to everybody she's come in contact in this episode so far.
But this scene ends. Yeah, you're right. This is Mai Ling's episode to say, hey, I'm the boss, everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a Chinese launderer or if you are a former Pinkerton, she's the boss.
Right. And she revels in this. She relishes this position and really seems to enjoy having her foot on the throat of everyone below her. She really does.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're an onion. It doesn't matter if you're a duck. She's going to have her foot on your throat, like you said.
Mike, this show is filled with good guys and bad guys, and it's mostly everybody's just good guys. It's mostly everybody's just bad guys. Just some are on one side or the other, right? But all of the characters, no matter what side of the law they fall on, have some sort of likability that they bring to this show, except for two characters so far. Sophie, who we've covered a couple different times now that we don't like, and Mai Ling. I don't like her. I don't like her one bit. And it's not because she's the evil leader of another Tong, because Father June's no different. And I kind of like his character, right? The chief of police, I kind of like his character. The mayor, even, who's not really a likable guy. I still like the character in a sense because of his role in all of this. But Mai Ling just doesn't bring anything to make you like her.
I'll disagree a little bit because what I like about Mai Ling is that I see her, I think there's something underneath because she's a Assam sister. And I'm kind of like, well, if Assam cares about her this much, there must be something to her. There must be something to her past. So I'm holding on because I believe there is something there. I agree with you about Sophie. Mayor Blake, I view almost as a comical character.
That's why I like him.
Yeah, he's like a Keystone Cop. He's like befuddled. So that's what I like about him.
Right.
And other characters like Buckley and Chow, I respect.
I
Sophie,
like Chow,
I agree.
Actually.
Yeah, I like Chow. Sophie, you're right. There's no redeemable quality there. But with Mai Ling, I'll disagree with you a little bit because I believe, like, if she's good enough for Assam, she's good enough for me. I'm just waiting to see how this plays out with her character.
All right, I'll give you the diamond in the rough theory for now.
So I'm going to be Team Mai Ling for the moment.
All right, so let's jump on the anti-Sophie team because we're back to the Banshee, and Sophie shows up now, and they're like kind of in the middle of their planning meeting, Leary and a couple of the Irish dudes, and she comes in. This is the aftermath of her argument with her sister, and she's like, I can help you blow up the place.
Yep.
And she offers them a secret entrance.
Yeah. And this gets Leary's, this gets Leary's gears going.
It does. But first, though, listen to this, though. I mean, I give Leary this much credit because he says, are you sure about this? Because, to go against your own people is not a small thing here. You really need to consider what you're saying here. Like, this is Leary, who would want nothing more than to blow up that factory with greatest of ease, still telling her, maybe you need to think about this before you just give me the keys to the store here. But she's insistent. She is insistent, even though he tries to talk her out of it. And at the end, he's not that much of an altruist. He's like, okay, what do you got?
Yeah, at the end of the day, he's still Leary, right? He's going to want to
Yeah.
in his own way, he is a chaos agent too. But yeah, you're right. He had that moment of, well, here's the woman I'm sleeping with. I care about her. Let me just lay this out for you. And like,
Yeah,
I'll
because he's
explain
like,
the
don't worry, there's plenty of other factors I can blow up. I don't need your help to go after your family and you doing this damage to your own life.
he's like,
But then he
well,
decides, okay, I can do it.
sort of, he said you gave her the consequences, and he's like, all right, you want to do it? Let's do it.
Yeah, don't say I didn't tell you.
Yep.
And
So
so that is where that scene ends. And I'm sitting there as the viewer now saying, wow, she is really going to screw over her sister because she didn't like that her sister literally told her the truth about herself. Okay. We're now at Atoy's again. Now it's business hours, though. And there's action. The music is playing. People are around at the bar, including Mr. Lee, our officer, and he's having a drink. And Atoy comes over to chat with him and offers him, would you like to choose one of the girls in a sense? And that's where Lee says, I'm not here for that.
no, he's there to numb his pain.
Yeah, she notices his bruises, I guess, and she says, do you have pain? And he says, yes. And she says, come with me. And they go into, I guess, the back. And how fortuitous. Chow is there having a drink, and from his table, he notices them walk past and go into the back. And what's in the back there? Essentially, the opium den.
Now, do you think Lee knew that?
Listen, Lee knew. Well, Lee said, "I'm not here for that." So he knew what he was going there for, and clearly, with his ear to the street, he knows he can get the pain-numbing supplies he needs because he's hurt.
Do you think that he was prepared though to just get that pain numbing from alcohol, from good old fashioned alcohol?
No, I think he thought he could probably get the lanolin stuff at Toys. And I think that's kind of what he was going for, because when they go back into the opium den, you can see that Lee's very hesitant about the whole scene, right? So it's not what he really went there for. And Atoy assures him of his safety. And she says, you'll be okay. And you'll be able to relax here. So he lights up. And it's very hesitant. He didn't dive in the way he does when he pours that lanolin into his drink and he drinks it down and he feels good and he passes out, right? But in this case, he lights up, he spins, and he falls asleep. And you see it's a good sleep because he's almost got a content look on his face. And the camera kind of goes up and we leave Lee there. And you kind of got the sense that Atoy is going to look out for him because she's good like that.
But again, to serve her own purposes, ultimately.
In a way, because it's always good to have the police on your side, right? Having a cop in your pocket's never a bad thing, no matter what side of the fence you're playing. Now we're back outside. So she leaves Lee in there to sleep off his high, and she sits with Chow. And this is where Chow lets her in on his plan, at least from a higher level, that he's looking to frame Zing. And she says to him, this is a stupid plan. And he says it's a stupid plan. And she says, you're right. It is stupid. But he needs her help to, I guess, get his wheels in motion with what he's got set up with Bill.
This is one of my favorite scenes of the episode because I feel like with Chow and Atoy, they're the only people really being truly genuine with each other. Like he calls her on her bullshit, she calls him on his bullshit.
Right.
He's like, here's what needs to. I think this is probably one of the most genuine scenes of the episode. I love the interaction between those two, especially.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mike. I think that if anyone is being upfront with the other as 100% as possible, it's these two, because Chow knows that she's the swordsman. Yeah. Remember that from way back when. Remember when he said, your secret, when did it become my problem? Well, he has secrets too, as we know. And so now they're looking at the sword, right? And this is part of whatever his plot is to lay this all on Zing and get Zing out of his hair. But he also says to her that he wants a favor in return. Doesn't really let us know what that is. But he needs a favor back from Atoy, and that's sort of his tit for tat there.
Yeah, kind of like the carriage. Yeah, kind of like the carriage ride with Mai Ling. We don't know what the alcohol in the Pinkerton Nichols the ex Pinkerton Nichols, but he
Yeah,
didn't tell us. So this episode's teasing us a little bit.
it does tease us because a couple of unknowns, right? And you wonder at this point, will we get this resolution in this episode, or is this some of it part of the longer game?
Yeah.
Back at Bill's house now, it's raining. The place is an absolute wreck. You could see it's all upside down, the same way as the Fung Hai left it, in a sense. And Bill's very emotional here. It's really settled in on him that his family life as he knew it is pretty much forever changed. And it's a quick scene, pretty much ends right there.
Right. And not to jump ahead, but the next scene kind of reminded me of this scene because it was sort of a similar scenario. Someone surveying the sadness of their life. I'll let you bring us to it.
Yeah, and that's Chow, right? We're back to Chow again, and he's sitting in a horse-drawn carriage. Everyone loves these horse-drawn carriages. And he's watching from his window of his carriage, and he sees what we quickly piece together is the mother of Hannah, the little girl that we met a couple episodes back, saying goodnight to one of her customers. Something she assured Chow a couple episodes back she was no longer doing, right? And that was like one of Chow's big hangups about when he went to go see the little girl in that last episode. They kind of debated with, she goes, I'm not doing that anymore. And Chow was like, okay. It looks to me like Chow went to go see to verify whether she was or not, because that favor he was asking Atoy from just a minute ago has something to do with the safety of the little girl.
Yeah, and I think that he doesn't really necessarily care about what his ex is doing. I think it's the fact that it's his little girl that could be possibly exposed to this. I think that's what's bothering him more.
Yeah, and it's not even that she's possibly exposed to it, because at the end of the scene, the mother picks up the girl's doll and says, here, Hannah, play with this. So the little girl's right there seeing her mother, probably with different men all day long. And that's all Chow needs to see, because he tells the carriage guy, let's go. So whatever the plan he's got now and the favor he asked Atoy, it's all tied together, Mike.
Yep.
No doubt about it. All right, here we go. Big scene here. Sophie, Leary, the Irish, and they're in the tunnel. They are making their way through into the heart of Mercer Steel. They are armed with dynamite. Leary gives the other guys their instructions as to where to set these things up. I think he says something like every 100 yards or every 100 feet. And if you see any chinks, cut bait and get the hell out of here. But before he even finishes the sentence, here comes the hop way, and the ass kicking starts, doesn't it? And it's a pretty big brawl.
Yeah, it's a good brawl. It's always fun to watch Leary exercise his muscle and fight. And this is just some good choreographed fighting here. Not much to say about it, really, except it was fun to watch. And at the end, Leary is standing there, and they're going to follow through with it. Now they might as well, because everyone's dead or beaten up, so they pretty much have no choice at this point. Yeah. So they decide to go through with it. Leary tells everyone, get the hell out. He'll finish it up. And it's like an action movie here, right?
It's funny because it's a good fight, first of all, and Leary gets cut in this brawl that he's having with the hopway, and but he does win, right? So he gets beat up a little bit. He comes out on top. They manage to take out the 3 or 4 guards, whatever it was, and then that's when, like you said, they ignite the dynamite and they take off out the tunnel, and they're running, and it's very Schwarzenegger-esque, right? Where the explosion
get to the chopper.
Yeah, also reminded me of the "See You in Hell, Candy Boys" from The Simpsons when Homer was running and the explosion happened behind him as well. All very similar. And the explosion,
pop rocks and soda. Yeah,
pop rocks and soda. The explosion is huge. I mean, the amount of TNT that they brought in there with them, it was a lot, right? And as it happens, you can see on Sophie's face instant regret.
Yeah.
Instant regret. And in the next scene, she goes home, or at least to the mayor's home, to a sleeping Penny. Penny sleeping on the couch because she and the husband, they don't share a bed, right?
No.
And she very guiltily I'm going to say it, guiltily grabs a blanket to cover her sister with, as if like that's the last nice thing she could possibly do for her because it's going to hit the fan in the morning. And she knows she messed up. She sits at the foot of that couch on the floor, and she's got kind of the same face as the instant regret face she had a moment earlier when the explosion happened. And she's crying, and that is where the episode ends. Powerful, man. Powerful end.
Emotionally powerful, and again makes me like Sophie even less because you did all this, now you regret it. Tough crackers.
Yeah, exactly. Now you gotta live with that, and no one is going to forgive you. She knows no one is going to forgive her, and this is it. As far as redeemable quality or any possible redemption, this character, out of all the characters in this show that have done so many horrendous things, she's the one that will get no redemption. And doesn't deserve it.
No, doesn't deserve it.
Because she's feeling exactly what Leary told her was going to happen if she goes and turns against her own people. And if you're Leary now, right? And okay, you're grateful in a sense that she hooked you up with this info to help you, continue your plan of blowing up all the coolie labor factories. How much is he going to trust her moving forward, knowing that she's a turncoat? If she'll turn on her own family, she's not going to bat an eye to turn on me to save her hide.
Right, that would be my thought.
I'm thinking if I'm Leary.
You can never really trust a double agent, so to speak.
You can't, especially when they're openly telling you they're a double agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm done with Sophie. Penny's going to be done with Sophie. Leary needs to be done with Sophie. Everybody, the mayor needs to be done with Sophie. She's got to get out of here. She's the worst character in terms of sowing the seeds of discord, and she's playing both sides of the fence. For someone who thinks very highly of herself, she's doing it in a really amateur fashion.
Yeah, and for petty reasons too. At least I'm not going to justify violence, but you can say in Leary's case, he's got a long-term goal here he's trying to achieve. He's doing this for a reason. I mean, not a good reason, but he's got a reason. Sophie, this is just pure spite.
Yeah, she's just spurned in many ways, right? Is that the word?
Right.
Or scorned?
Scorned sister, yes.
Well, that puts a wrap on this one, Mike. Next episode is episode 5 of season 2, and that is the official halfway mark of the entire series. So next week, join us as we take you through what's going to be another great episode. They all are. Thanks for watching, of course. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends about our show. Tell your friends that it's going to be on Netflix. Tell anybody who's never seen Warrior yet that Warrior exists. Ain't that about the size of it, Mike?
That's about the size of it. Yeah. Press like, tell your friends. As they say in the restaurant business, if you like what we've done, tell a friend. If we haven't, then tell us.
The restaurant business. Doesn't every business say that, though?
I guess maybe.
That's it for this week's episode of Diced Onion. I'm your host, Angelo Fiores. Your other host right there, Mike Haggerty. We wish you well. See you next